All right, Patrick Goodman, welcome to Continuing Conversations. Wonderful to have you on board. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Michael. How are you?
Good, good. This is actually going to be a very interesting conversation for the reason that this is a tribute to a good friend of yours, and probably somebody everyone knows whether they recognize they've used some of his work or not, and that is Neale Davidson.
Right.
Continuing conversations and continuing missions were all about the fans. We know that the fans is what makes Star Trek great. And why are we speaking about Neale Davidson? Of course, it's because of his unfortunate passing. And so we wanted to ask you, Patrick Goodman, you knew Neale pretty well. Tell us, what kind of a person was he? How'd you get to know him?
I met Neale on the old Trek RPG forums back when the Decipher game was still a going concern. He was an old school gamer. We had a lot of talk about the old Fast game, which is where a lot of his art started. Was you look at the old FASA ship recognition manuals, and so you can tell they were cut and pasted from different parts, and that drove him crazy. So he wanted to have nice, clean art to go with his gaming material. So he just started doing it himself.
I love the drive. I think anybody who's a gamer knows people who take it a little step further. I know I appreciate people like that immensely. We're packed with content because of that. What kind of a person, besides Star Trek though, I know you never actually met him in person. Your relationship was based because of Star Trek, but what did you know of him as a person?
He was a dedicated husband and father. He had 3 little girls. He was cantankerous. He could be very outspoken politically, but he didn't argue. He didn't tend to write people off the way just the way it happens so much these days.
And he left behind a wife too, didn't he?
Wife and 3 daughters.
Daughters, exactly. And he was young, 44 years old.
44 years old.
That's really scary. So definitely before his time.
Way before his time.
Yeah, it sounds like, cantankerous could be another word for passionate, and passion shows up in different forms. And I think where we really saw his passion was through the work he put into all of these schematics, which I'm going to be showing as we speak and talking about. I see. Did he ever tell you what drove him to do this? You said that he piecemealed it together and he didn't like the incomplete works of what he saw in some of the modules, but what was his motivation? Like, what drove him to do such amazing work?
I think it started, like I said, because he was just vexed by the relatively poor quality of the art in some of those old books from back in the 80s. And from there, he said, I think I can do better than this. So he was just constantly pushing to do better. And then, sometimes people ask him, hey, there's this ship from Jackals or from Amarillo Design Bureau that the art is weak. Do you think you could do a version of this ship? He'd give it a shot.
By looking at the schematics, I had to guess, he must have been an architect by day, gamer by night. Am I dead wrong?
He worked in computers. I don't think he was a draftsman, but he might have been. A lot of the early stuff he was doing in Paint.
Wow.
In NS Paint.
So immensely patient. Of course, he has 3 daughters, so that has to come. That has to come part and parcel.
Patience comes with fatherhood, or you go crazy really fast.
Right. And did he ever make money off this? I mean, this is top quality stuff here.
Not to my knowledge. He did. There's only so much he could have made without attracting Paramount's attention. He did a lot of what he made his money off of, his fandom money. He also did fonts. Now his wife is still trying. The website is still up, and they're still selling his fonts. And I'll get you a link for that.
Thank you. I want to definitely put that up. I think one of the things that again gets me is that it's not only just to do it for your own sake, but to share it. So he was putting this out on the internet, and I know you're working on a project right now. We're going to share the link to it, but talk to us about Jane's Starships, the Star Trek art of Neale Davidson.
Jane's Starships. One of the things that drove me crazy about Neale is he'd put something out, and then when he started doing something he thought was better, he'd start breaking links and hiding it away. Now, most of us had saved it somewhere, but he would break the links, and he said, "Oh, this is better." I was working on a project for a fan project for Decipher that was basically putting all the stats to the various ships from the Franz Josef technical manual. He and I both had a deep, abiding love for the old Franz Josef technical manual from the 70s. And I was putting Decipher stats to that, and I was using versions of, I'd ask him, "Hey, can I use your art in this book?" He said, "Please." By all means, go for it. And then when I showed him a proof, said, no, use better art. Here's
a little bit of a perfectionist.
Little bit of a perfectionist, and it's. I was using the line art, and he was pushing the color stuff on me. And then Decipher fell away, and I never really finished that project. Now that I've got started on Jane's, I'm going to probably get back to that and upgrade the art.
And I want to say too, for people who are wondering, that Patrick went ahead and got permission, of course, from his widow in order to use it, to put it up here as a way to honor Neale Davidson. There's some opportunities. If you want to, you can always donate on PayPal, because it does take time and resources to do this, or on Coffee, which is up here. But I think what's amazing about it, I know I use these schematics. I look on here constantly, not only when I have the privilege of writing a game, but even playing the game. Patrick, are you using these actively?
I am. I'll shoot you as soon as I remember where I put them online. But as I'm documenting my own home campaign, since the ships are as much a character in a game as any of the player characters, I make character sheets for them, and I've been using Neale's work as character portraits.
Perfect. I think one of my favorite. Now, he only did a certain era too. Talk about what eras he did. Did he do everything Star Trek? What was he working with?
He was mostly. He was very much original series, the 23rd century. I think he may have done a couple of next generation designs. Cleaned up. I think he cleaned up a couple of things from the old FASA next generation manual that wound up costing FASA the license. I think he did some of those. I've got literally hundreds and hundreds of image files floating around on my hard drive right now. I'm still sorting through.
So you're going to still be adding stuff.
Oh yeah. This is an ongoing project. This is not something that's going to be finished overnight.
Well, I'm glad he did the ships of the line. I know he has one book called Ships of the Line 2268. It's my favorite ship of all time of that era. I'm a big Intrepid class fan, but with
Intrepid's
Miranda
a nice
class,
ship.
I loved it. It feels like being at home. But the Miranda, of course, from Wrath of Khan 2 really took the cake there, and that's become one of my favorite ships.
It's a gorgeous ship. It's one of my go-to ships personally.
Yeah. And what I like about what he did, I'm going to show this, of course, as I talk about it. But for those of you who are wondering how to utilize this in your RPG, it gives you some important details. Like, he put everything from crew complement to about the drive system, supplemental crafts, the dimensions and size of the vehicles. And then he gives some general information that, if you're anything like me, I love technobabble in my game. It legitimizes it, creates the universe, paints a good picture. Now, I had a question, because when you take a look, of course, I see the USS Reliant listed there on all the ships that he says the following ships of the Miranda class heavy frigate have been authorized as part of the Federation Starfleet as Stardate 7505. And then he goes on to list, we know the Reliant, but he goes on to list all these other Miranda class ships. And did he make up the names? And because I was looking at them and I couldn't find comparisons with different class ships, so I was wondering where he pulled those from.
I'm not 100% sure where he pulled some of those names. Some of them are obviously going to be Shakespeare references because the class itself is a Shakespeare reference, a time-honored tradition.
Okay, I thought maybe I'm hoping if anyone out there knows it who watches this, drop it into the chat. But I'm hoping that maybe he knew other gamers that were using this ship in their games and decided to add them to this. I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It would not surprise me at all that he would do that, though.
I mean, do you know any other fandom besides Star Wars? I'll give it to Star Wars. Going into a lot of detail into their schematics and all that. I mean, what is it about Star Trek fans and gamers that drives them? I know for me to eat this up and people like Neale to design it. What do you think that is, Patrick? Because it's more detail. Is it more detail than we need?
Maybe. Possibly. Maybe.
But what is it? I know my answer, but I got to hear from you why you think we spend our time poring over these schematics as if we're about to go into battle. You know.
For me, it's always been a source of escapism. I like knowing oh, hey, look, to get from point A to point B, you've got to go through this lift, and you've got to go around this corner, and oh, look, there's this blind corner here, and some of it is planning, some of it's just escapism. You like knowing what it is, and some of them you just want. It's nice to have good art.
Yeah. I like to think we're designing the future without knowing. People like Neale are we've already seen designs emulate sci-fi before, and I think it takes it to a place where I could really see people saying, like, is this even possible physically? Does this design make sense? And so I like hoping that we're looking at peeking a little bit into the future with Neale's work when we see how
and then he'd enjoy that too.
I got it. Now, I think the passion that Neale put into this too is starting to evolve. We can see online now a lot of the YouTube channels where they're designing ships, and they're showing you now 3D scopes of that. Where do you want it to evolve to when it comes to these schematics? This is definitely the 10 commandments of it. This is the first, this is definitely the base, I think, for a lot of what we see. But where do you think fans are going to take it in the next decade?
Oh gosh, obviously, you're getting 3D interpretations, like you said. There's a guy, a very casual friend of mine online. His name is Mark Bell, who has done some amazing, and he's an effects artist. He does some phenomenal 3D renders of ships. He did the Janky from Picard, for instance. He's done a fantastic, the Discovery version of the Constitution class. He's done a great 3D model of it. So good, in fact, that John Eves, the man who designed it, was using it for a while as his wallpaper.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, well, that's credibility right there. That's some fan cred right there. But I definitely see it going. I would love to see a three-dimensional kind of flyby where you could have these three-shot I can't pronounce that word. Orthogonal, I think is how it's.
Have it. I'm not trying.
I think how it's pronounced. But I'd love to see. I'd love to be able to do a flyby. I'd love to be able to zoom in and look at how the nacelles attached to the hull in relation to the shuttle bay and things like that.
Right. So you want the flyby. I want the walkthrough. So I know that there's some times where you can do a walking tour of the Enterprise, walking tour of Voyager.
That would be cool too. Yeah.
But for people play Roll20 here, but imagine if you could walk through these ships while you're playing RPGs, so you can move through. And I mean, that's where I honestly think it can get there within 10 years.
That would kick ass.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it just takes someone who's going to have to be as passionate as Neale Davidson, someone who's going to have to be passionate as you are as a writer, bringing our imagination alive. And I just want to invite people to, if you want to be seen, again, it's not about the money, it's just about the passion and escapism and future forward thinking, to get it out there. Always drop it off on Continuing Conversations if you want to. We're happy to share your fan art. What about you, Patrick? What would you say to people who are maybe tucked away in their own little corners of creativity?
Get it out there. Show people. It's not doing anybody any good sitting on your hard drive. That I've been doing this for 20 years, and people were asking me for advice. It's like, wait, and the advice is always the same: do what you love and show it to people. And
I think one of the cool things now about the internet too is it enables us to have these small fandoms, and I know one cool thing about Modiphius is they are looking for freelance writers all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, and so if you're practicing and polishing your work and also getting to know people within the fandoms and sharing your art like you're doing right now, in honor of Neale Davidson, or writing, then you're going to come to someone's attention eventually. And I've seen that happen so far with Modiphius, which I think is taking an epic approach to looking for freelance writers in diverse.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely one of I've been in the gaming industry for 22, 23 years now. The first thing I ever had published was back in '99. So I was probably writing that particular material in '98. So 23 years, and I've never seen a company as open to new writers, and a lot of that falls. When we first started, of course, Sam and Chris were looking for people with some credits, but in the 4 years or so since then, I know Jim Johnson has been incredibly open. He is constantly looking for new artists, new writers,
new artists. Like you said, new artists, new creators, and concept artists too.
Yeah, but he's got a kind of a standing, message. I know he's got a message on Twitter right now that I think is still a going concern. If you know somebody who does 2D or 3D art, in the style that we're using in our books, get them in touch with me.
That's right. Jim's looking for the new Neale Davidsons, the people who are carrying that torch.
Absolutely.
Out there, and so in final tribute to Neale Davidson, I know your site's going to be building up over the next couple of months as you grab as many of his schematics and work you can. Anything you want to say to your friend about your friend?
I think he'd be flabbergasted that his work was still carrying on. There are people who are working with tools that he created, with graphic tools that he created, that are still working on starships to this day. And it's been 5 years since he passed away. It's been 5 years.
So I really have to give it to you for pulling this together then and doing the effort on that too. It's enough to promote your own work when you have it, but when you're out there also talking about the legacy someone lives, I think that's a great honor. That no one should forget Neale Davidson. I still, again, I've been using his stuff for years, looking and referencing it, and now I realize he's really the foundation to what we're doing with the Way of Starships. And every time I'll look at a Star Trek Adventures ship, I'll be wondering, I wonder if so and so used this as a basis for some of the schematics or technobabble that we're playing with nowadays. So true, so true. Well, I appreciate you, Patrick Goodman. I appreciate you taking time to talk to us about this and all the work you're doing in the background to make sure we don't forget his art and that we have access to it too. That's super cool.
I appreciate that, Michael. I can't say enough about what you and Tony and the other guys are doing with Continuing Mission. That's one of the most Yeah, if that's not one of the most emphatic labors of love for a game that I've ever seen, I don't know what is.
Super fans, it's worth it. Super fans, we just want Star Trek to stay forever. So.
Absolutely.